Hi everyone. Captain America Civil War came out 2 months ago. I didn't want to do an in-depth review until I'd seen it a second time, which only happened a couple weeks ago. And I recorded a review, and I was just about to post it when there was this horrific shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. I just didn't feel like it was the right time to do another movie review right now. I'd rather... Anyway, I wanted to get this review up, of course, and I felt like, just to wait for a little while would be appropriate. So, in full, my spoilerful review of Captain America Civil War. By my count, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, up to and including the second of the two Infinity War movies that is due to be released in 2019, amounts to 22 films, and it's startling to me to think that the entire MCU is resembling one gigantic season of a Joss Whedon television series such as Buffy or Angel, and that you have episodes devoted to the group, episodes devoted to particular characters in the group, and then you have the sort of hints that lead up to the finale with the big bad, which in this case would be Thanos. Some episodes are okay, not so great maybe. Some episodes are really good, and I think well, my opinion anyway, is that the best one so far is the one that just opened in May. So it's been a month and a half or so since Captain America Civil War opened. I posted a quick reaction video after I'd seen it, but I wanted to take a little bit more time not only to watch it a second time, but sort of gather my thoughts on it and do a proper review of the movie. So yeah, it's a little kind of late on the late side, but then again, it'll be released on home video, so maybe people will watch this then. So I'm not even sure when it's coming out on Blu-ray. Anyway, so this is, of course, a movie that's focused primarily on Captain America, but also on Tony Stark, who is probably the most prominent character in the MCU, most prominent single character. He's had 3 movies now, and although this is Cap's 3rd movie, he ends up sharing this with Tony. I was reading a little bit about after the release of the movie, and people who were in charge of the film, the writers, the producers, were saying, we really were, worried about that we wouldn't be able to get Downey for this movie to play Tony Stark because the character of Tony was just so important to this movie, even though it was a Captain America movie. And having seen the movie in its entirety, I totally understand that because of how things turn out. In case you didn't notice from the title, this is what I call a spoilerful review. And so it's really important, if you plan on seeing the movie but haven't yet and don't want to have developments revealed to you ahead of time, that you not watch too much of this video, because it's the experience of actually watching the movie will be, as I say, spoiled. I'm a big fan of writers and directors and editors, people who craft a story and people who convey information, release bits of information in a particular way over the course of telling a story, and having all that stuff in your head beforehand is detrimental to their job. And actually just read a little article today about the new film Me Without You, or Me With You, or I can't remember what it's called exactly, but it's an Emilia Clarke film that just opened, and I read the ending, so I'm like, oh, okay, so I know what happens, so, I'll be thinking about that if I do eventually see the movie, which I really wasn't planning to. Anyway, so, fair warning, there's going to be spoilers in this. So, the story, let me just recap the story a little bit, even though those of you watching most certainly have already seen the film. The UN appoints General Ross, or I can't remember what his actual title. I think he's a Secretary of Defense, actually, played by William Hurt, who was in The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton from 2008. They appoint him to basically go to the Avengers, Steve Rogers and Tony Stark and the whole gang, which is, you know, pretty large at this point, and say, look, this is a worrying matter for us, you know, the destruction you guys are causing, or you know, the destruction that's being wreaked as you try and save people's lives, despite the fact that, you know, these incidents aren't really caused by them, with the exception of Ultron. Ultron was actually caused by Tony Stark, and so they can certainly pin the blame on the Avengers for that one. If not all of the Avengers, then at least one of them. But the rest of them is just them responding to these destructive forces that are targeting cities and communities, and the Avengers are trying to stop them, but there's collateral damage and what have you. And the latest incident of this involves the character of Brock Rumlow from The Winter Soldier, who causes a major calamity in Nigeria, I think. Some Americans are killed, Nigerians are killed, Wakandans are killed, and this is down to the fact that he tried to detonate a bomb, basically, and blow up Steve and himself and a few other, whoever was happening to be around. And Wanda Maximoff, the Elizabeth Olsen character, used her power to try and contain the explosion and shoot it away, but wasn't successful. It ended up taking out some bystanders in a nearby building, and so there's dead people, and everyone's feeling really bad about that, including the Avengers. But it's funny, I watched the Red Letter Media review, and they're like, how does the UN expect to actually work with this exactly? You know, if there's some monster attacking a city, are they going to vote to send the Avengers in? And what happens if they don't have enough votes? You know, are they just going to sit around and do nothing? Rogers, obviously, Captain Steve Rogers, he doesn't really believe that this will be helpful at all. He says, you know, that the people who will make these decisions for us, you know, won't necessarily have the interests of the people who need our help at heart. They'll have their own interests to worry about. And Tony, you know, while he feels guilty about the damage that he's caused, also doesn't entirely believe in the Sokovia Accords, as they call them, as well. His heart doesn't seem entirely in it, even though he does feel guilty, because, as he says at one point in the movie, I'm trying to prevent this from being done to us. I'm agreeing to this now so that something worse doesn't happen later. And of course he eventually sort of comes around, at least, well, not on the Accord so much as they do the issue of Bucky. That's the whole thing that sets this in motion right here. We have this gathering of UN officials, including Chitaka, I think that's how you say his name, Chitaka, who is the king of the African nation Wakanda, the fictional country where Black Panther comes from. His son, of course, is T'Challa. And when there's a bombing in the UN, it's blamed on Bucky, who has been missing since the Winter Soldier. They have some footage of him leaving a parking garage with the van that got blown up. So they blame him, and they're going to go after him. And T'Challa, of course, he, as he says, wears the mantle of the Black Panther to chase after him and stop him. Meanwhile, Steve wants to save Bucky's life and prevent him from being killed by, you know, whatever security force is after him, because Bucky's his last link with his old time period, when he fell into the ice and was asleep for 70 years. All those people are all gone. His family, his friends, everyone he knew is gone. Bucky is the last one left. Even Peggy Carter is gone as well. There's her funeral, basically, in the course of the movie. One of my favorite scenes in the film, after Natasha Romanoff, the Scarlett Johansson character, agrees with Tony about maybe we should, you know, accept this oversight. She shows up at the funeral in London, and they have a nice moment there. They have a connection that Steve doesn't necessarily have with a lot of the other people on this team, including Tony, because of the time they spent together on the Winter Soldier, running from Hydra and all that stuff. And although she's on the side of the Accords for now, she's still sort of sympathetic to him. I really like that scene a lot with the two of them after the funeral. Meanwhile, of course, we find out about Sharon, who is Peggy's niece, as it turns out. Yeah, so anyway, I'm just sort of going through the story points by points. Let me explain why this film is the best of the Marvel movies so far. we have this personal conflict, which is what the movie comes down to in the end. A funny thing happened while I was watching this. I forgot what was going to happen based on what I'd seen in the trailers. In the trailers, we have a three-way fight, basically, between Cap and Bucky and Tony. And I sort of figured everyone was making a big deal about the sequence at the airport with all the guest starring Avengers all clashing together. Spider-Man, Ant-Man, Vision, Clint comes back in, Hawkeye, he comes back in for a bit. I always sort of figured that would sort of segue into that three-way battle. But I didn't notice that there was snow on the ground during that last battle right there. They are fighting an environment that's colder than the airport in Germany. It's just something I failed to notice as I was watching the clips. And as the movie progressed, when that fight ended, and Cap gets the information about Siberia, and they go off to find the guy that they're looking for in Siberia, and then Tony finds out about it, and he goes after them. And the three of them, they all seem to be on the same page. Cap, Bucky, and Tony, they're all looking for the guy that caused all the trouble in the first place. But at that moment right there, as I was watching that play out, I had forgotten that there was going to be another fight between these guys right here. I thought, geez, maybe they can actually get this guy, maybe, but as it turns out, I was completely wrong about that. Because what Tony, the whole plan of the villain, Zemo, I guess he's Sokovian, right? He's a Sokovian intelligence agent, and so he manages to acquire the information needed to reactivate Bucky as a Winter Soldier and cause all kinds of problems. So that he can trap them and get them to self-destruct, basically. The Avengers self-destruct because he has this crucial piece of information that Cap has, but Tony does not have. And that crucial piece of information is, of course, that under the Hydra programming, the brainwashing that was inflicted on him, Bucky is the one that murdered Tony's parents in 1991. I'm a little reluctant to accept that there was a security camera on that long stretch of forest road that just happened to be in the right place to record that event. But at the time, it didn't bother me all that much. It's sort of in retrospect of going, gee, why would there be a security camera at that random point in the road right where the car crashes and we see Bucky do his thing. But the movie overall is so compelling and entertaining that, those sort of quibbles I end up, thinking not such a big deal, whereas something like Batman versus Superman, any quibbles I have are much more prominent because the movie as a whole is pretty unsatisfying. So, yeah, there's a scene where they watch the video, basically. They're standing around, and Zemo, who's basically protecting himself in a booth with plexiglass so that they can't get to him, starts the VHS and shows the video of the car crash and then Bucky walking over to Tony's father and mother and murdering them before he takes off. And at that point, Tony just loses it. He does not care. He does not care that Bucky was under the influence of Hydra. He just watched Bucky kill his parents. He wants blood. He wants to avenge them. He wants to, rip that guy in half. And so Cap is forced to fight against him. And the reason why this is so much better than this typical MCU ending, because it's just like, they're all fighting against this big force, against this villain who's clearly a bad guy and must be stopped, and it's this huge battle, and the stakes aren't personal, really, at that point. They're more global, they're global, or they affect a large amount of people, whereas this is a much more intimate battle here. And it's a brutal fight. It's a really brutal fight when it gets down to it. Everybody is pretty bloody at the end of that fight right there. Cap smashes Tony's helmet right off of his head. He takes his shield, he slams it down into his arc reactor and his armor and disables his weaponry and everything like that. And nobody is walking away happy from this. Nobody is saying, well, at least we got the guy at that point. They did. But yeah, it's bad. And at that point in the movie right there, when the movie is over, there's only really like 2 Avengers left. I guess you could still count Rhodey, but he's kind of out of commission until they, he suffered greatly. He suffered a really serious injury at the airport battle, so I don't think that he's going to be battle ready anytime soon. So really, there's only 2 Avengers left, and that's Tony and Vision. Everyone else is a fugitive. Cap finds a safe place for Bucky in Wakanda under T'Challa's care. And he goes and busts out Clint and Lang and Sam, of course, Sam Wilson, and Wanda, of course. They're all in the prison being overseen by William Hurt, and he, gets them out at the end. So they're all fugitive heroes, whereas the only official heroes, the ones that are approved by the UN, are Tony and Vision, and Spider-Man, of course, as well, when he finds time away from his studies at his Queens High School. So yeah, it's a sad state of affairs at the end of it. Really, really sad. But it's great because it's so much more personal and so much more emotionally impactful than one in which they just have to stop some big destructive thing from happening and save a whole bunch of lives of people that we never really meet. It's just a huge amount of people that get their lives saved by the Avengers, and then they go off and, everything's fine now, we stopped the bad guy. The bad guy in this case is a regular guy with some special skills and experience, and he just completely destroys the team because he plays them off of each other. The Daniel Bruhl character, Zemo, is a really good character. We don't learn a lot about him, other than the fact that he lost, several people that he cared for very much, and he was, looking to make the Avengers suffer for that. And he's, since it was kind of the Avengers' fault to begin with, all the business in Sokovia, it's totally understandable. 2 of my favorite scenes in the movie, one of which was, of course, the fight at the end, which really was a tough thing to see happen. These guys fighting each other and really just tearing into each other. Also, another scene that I really liked was the scene where Bucky has been captured and he's being held in the cell, and a person comes to talk to him to evaluate him psychologically. And as soon as the guy sat down at the table, I remembered that I saw a publicity still of Daniel Bruhl sitting at a table in a room with concrete walls. I'm like, uh-oh, that's Zemo. This is going to be a problem. And at that point, Zemo already has the code words to reactivate Bucky's brainwash programming. And at one point, and he orders him to kill a bunch of people and try and escape. That's a really tense sequence right there. You've got Tony going after him without his suit. You've got T'Challa going after him. You've got both Natasha and Sharon Carter taking him on at the same time, which was great. I really liked that moment a lot. That was really cool. The only action sequence I didn't like as much was the scene which took place in Nigeria at the beginning, because there was just, the camera work was so erratic. I think that the stunt double for Scarlett Johansson did a lot of the work there, so they didn't really... They kept the camera sort of obscuring your face as much as possible, so there was a lot of shakiness there. But up until that point, really, everything after that was really, really exciting. The conversation that Tony has with Cap about the pens, and he says, it's time for us to really just, let just sign it, so we can get on doing what we do, and we'll figure out how to change the documents later to give us more power, more freedom to do what we need to do, but just sign it for now. And that's a whole conflict he has. And the conversation he has with Steve about his dad saying, "Oh, you knew my father. I never knew that, except that he mentioned it 10,000 times when I was a kid. Boy, I really hated you." They've been at odds in one form or another since they first met, because Tony has this history of hearing of his father just how great Captain America was, and he's been trying to live up to that ever since. That was really good too. That was a really good scene. What else? Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, he's really good. He just shows up suddenly, in the suit. I kind of wish that I didn't know anything about the character that he was going to be playing, so when he just shows up in the outfit with the claws and everything, I'm like, whoa, and then finally at the end of the scene he takes his helmet off and it's T'Challa. We see who he is. Yeah, there's a lot of great, there's a lot of really good performances in that. I think Wanda's accent's a little shaky at times, but, you know, I'm not, you know, it's not like I could do any better, so I'll forgive that. You know, I mean, I've heard plenty worse accents. Yeah, Clint's fun, of course, and Paul Rudd's fun. I think maybe they spent a little bit too much on Peter Parker. You know, there's a whole scene where Tony goes and meets Peter and his Aunt May, of course, played by Marissa Tomei. And that scene seems to go on a really long time and take focus away from Cap and Bucky a bit more than I would have liked. So, yeah. And then there's the whole end credit scene. Also, one other thing that I was a little... I can't even remember what I was going to say about... Yeah, I was going to bring something else up that was an issue. Okay, let me instead talk about the scene where Tony is at the MIT convention. We see the, not a convention, but a presentation for MIT students where he offers them funding for all of their projects, and he simulates this scene where he, as a younger guy, talks with his parents and says goodbye to them before they die because he didn't get the chance to do that. If you thought that they did a great job with the young Michael Douglas and Ant-Man, that's nothing compared to what they did to create the young Robert Downey Jr. For that scene. That was amazing looking, just absolutely incredible. It looked so great. Of course, they had a lot of material to work with from old Robert Downey Jr. movies. But yeah, that was pretty great. A bunch of people I didn't expect to see in this, like Alfre Woodard. She pops up in one scene. Hope Davis plays Tony's mom. I'm glad that they got the actor, I can't remember his name, the one from Mad Men who plays Howard Stark. He was in Iron Man 2, you know, we saw him on a film, and so he was back to play the character for this one. So that was really great. Some nice consistency there. Yeah, a lot of the battles were fun. It's just a really exciting movie overall. Moves really well. Everything's yeah, the Russo brothers, Anthony and Joe Russo, the co-directors of this and Winter Soldier, they're just killing it, man. I'm really excited to see Infinity War. Infinity War is just going to be something that's... I can't even imagine how massive the scale of the two films is going to be, but yeah, they are clearly the right guys for the job. They are doing really, really well with these movies. Yeah, as I said in my earlier reaction video, I am the hugest Joss Whedon fan. I just love his work. I love his writing. I love the stuff that he's done. And The Avengers was my favorite movie, my absolute favorite movie in the whole MCU until now. I'd have to say that Civil War, after seeing it for a second time, I can comfortably say that it is the best, the most well-made, and the most impactful of all the Marvel movies so far. So, yeah, can't think of anything else to say on the matter, other than the fact that Stan Lee's cameo was pretty lame this time around. His best cameo is in The Winter Soldier. Oh, I am so fired. I just love that. That was great. Yeah, that's all I have for right now. So yes, thank you for watching. Those are my spoilerful thoughts on the film. There's a lot more that I could say about this, but I don't want to take too much time. Those were like the important things, really. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you again very soon. And if you haven't already visited my Facebook page, the link to that is below, where you can see not only all the videos that I post from my own channel, but other people's videos as well, and other things that I find fun or exciting. I'm also part of a collab channel called The Movie Reviewers 100. The link is to that is below. I do a video every Thursday. So I hope you'll take a look at that if you are someone who's new and hasn't seen my stuff before. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye. So I wanted to add a little something to what I've already said on the matter. I've read a lot about people complaining how implausible it is that Zemo could anticipate both Stark and Steve Rogers arriving in Siberia to watch that videotape at the same time and thus get into a tussle. Yes, a lot of things that happen in movies like this strain credibility, but I felt that this was set up well enough. with the scenes involving Zemo at the hotel in Germany, in which he established a rapport with the girl who brought him his breakfast via room service. He had, of course, the dead body of the man that he was going to replace as the interrogator of Bucky. And he also had the prosthetic made to resemble Bucky and to blame him for the bombing of the UN and the death of King T'Chaka. That was his plan, really, to have that evidence be discovered. And so when he called her to order his breakfast from Siberia, pretending that he was still in the hotel, it was the intention that she would discover these things and that they would put together the fact that Bucky had been set up, and that information would then make its way to Tony Stark. The credibility, I felt, was strained perhaps by the timing of this, that they arrived just in the nick of time. But again, it's not something that just he expected to happen just kind of out of the blue. So, I mean, all these movies have things that strain credibility, and sometimes I pick at those things, and they really kind of emphasize themselves as flaws in a movie that I'm not enjoying, but in a movie that I am enjoying a great deal overall. They're less problematic. So that's the case with me. There is as I said before, this is sort of starting to resemble a gigantic television series. And when you have a series, devote an episode to a big conflict between characters who are both and that we've seen grow and develop a relationship with, it's far more emotionally impactful to see them at odds with each other than it is to see characters at odds with a pretty much anonymous army of robots or aliens or just, the villain of the week, as it were. Which is why I think this movie works so very, very well. So yeah, that is my review. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you have not already done so, please visit the collab channel that I'm a part of, the Movie Reviewers 100, because tomorrow, Thursday, is my regular day, and I will be reviewing all 3 Purge movies. I hope you'll take a look at that when it goes up tomorrow. Thanks very much for watching. See you again real soon. Bye.